Imagine the sky suddenly turns black. Rain begins hammering the ground. Then, boom! Something louder than any animal you've ever heard shakes the entire landscape. A white flash tears across the sky, and a few seconds later, another explosion. Today, you know what's happening. Lightning, thunder, a storm. But imagine experiencing that without knowing about electric charge, atmospheric pressure, condensation, or sound waves. What would you think was up there? And here's where this question gets much stranger, because ancient humans didn't have just one answer. They had many. There's something important we have to admit first. If we're talking about humans living tens of thousands of years before writing, we don't actually know what they thought thunder was. Archaeologists can uncover burials, art, ritual objects, unusual deposits, monuments, and other evidence of symbolic behavior. But reconstructing someone's precise thoughts from an object is incredibly difficult. Without written records, we usually cannot say, "This was their thunder god," or "This is the story they told when rain began falling." We don't know the names of Paleolithic storm gods. We don't know whether some groups even imagined storms as gods at all. That's the first twist in this story. The farther back we go, the quieter the evidence becomes. Go to ancient Mesopotamia. Here, storms could be associated with a god named Adad, and his symbolism tells you exactly what kind of power people associated with him. One of Adad's symbols was forked lightning. Another was the bull. Why a bull? One explanation preserved by the Metropolitan Museum of Art is wonderfully simple. The rumble of thunder could be compared with the roar of a powerful bull. So imagine hearing a storm roll toward your settlement. To us, that's atmospheric activity. Within this religious world, the storm could also express divine power. And rain wasn't merely dramatic. For agricultural societies, water could mean crops, survival, prosperity. But storms could also bring destruction. So the same force capable of feeding the land could terrify the people living on it. The storm god represented both sides of the sky, the giver and the destroyer. Travel east into the ancient Vedic world. Here we meet Indra. The Vedic hymns describe a religious world populated by divine powers closely connected to natural forces. And Indra became one of its great atmospheric figures, a god associated with thunder and rain. His famous weapon was the Vajra, the thunderbolt. So once again, lightning isn't merely something happening randomly overhead. It belongs within a story. The storm has agency. The storm has power. The storm can act. And rain can become something controlled by a being far more powerful than any human. That gives people something nature by itself doesn't. Someone to praise, someone to fear, someone to petition, someone to blame. And if that sounds familiar, you've probably already guessed who's coming next. Ancient Greece gives us perhaps the most famous thunder wielder of them all. Zeus. Zeus wasn't merely king of the Olympian gods. He was a sky and weather deity. Thunder, lightning, rain, wind, all fell within his sphere. And the weapon most strongly associated with him was, of course, the thunderbolt. Ancient Greek art repeatedly shows Zeus wielding it. So a flash across the clouds fit perfectly into the visual language of divine power. Think about how different that makes a thunderstorm feel. Lightning isn't just electricity moving through the atmosphere. It's a weapon. Thunder isn't merely expanding air. It accompanies the power of the ruler of heaven. But here's the fascinating part. Even within Greece, that explanation wouldn't remain untouched forever. We'll come back to that. Because first, we need to cross an ocean. At ancient Teotihuacan in central Mexico, archaeologists find repeated images of a powerful storm god. The imagery associates this deity with water, lightning, agricultural fertility, but also warfare and rulership. That combination might initially seem strange. Why would rain and warfare belong together? Because storms aren't gentle. Lightning strikes, thunder threatens, floodwater destroys. Yet that same storm may deliver water on which agriculture depends. The sky possesses enormous power precisely because humans cannot completely control it. Teotihuacan artists even represented their storm deity carrying weapons. So once again, we encounter the same tension. Rain can sustain life, while the storm carrying it can also kill. And much later in central Mexican history, the Aztec god Tlaloc would likewise be associated with rain, thunder, lightning, water, and fertility. Different culture, different traditions, but another storm filled with supernatural meaning. Now jump forward to pre-Christian Scandinavia. When you hear Thor, you probably immediately think thunder, and that association is real. Historical museum sources describe Thor as a thunder god, linked with his hammer, Mjolnir, and with protection. Some later traditions even describe thunder and lightning accompanying his movement through the sky. But there's a complication. Much of what we know about Norse mythology comes from texts written down during the medieval Christian period. The National Museum of Denmark explicitly warns that these sources don't give us a perfectly transparent window into what every Viking actually believed. That's important. Ancient religion wasn't one giant mythology handbook. Beliefs changed, stories changed, regions differed, and our surviving evidence is incomplete. Still, across these very different societies, something remarkable keeps appearing. The storm becomes personal, powerful, intentional. But then, some people begin asking a completely different question. Not who makes thunder, but how. Ancient Greece didn't only give us Zeus, it also produced philosophers trying to explain nature through physical processes. And eventually, Aristotle wrote extensively about weather in his work Meteorology. He was wrong about the actual mechanism, but the important thing is the kind of explanation he attempted. Aristotle argued that atmospheric materials, or what he called exhalations, within clouds were involved in thunder and lightning. No divine thunderbolt was required in the mechanism. Clouds themselves could produce the phenomenon. He even discussed why lightning appears to us before we hear the associated sound. The flash reaches us before the noise does. That seems obvious today. But conceptually, something enormous has happened. Thunder has moved from mythology into meteorology. The question has changed from, which god did this? To, what process caused this? And humanity would spend centuries improving the answer. Today, the explanation is even stranger than most ancient myths. Inside thunderstorms, electric charge builds. When lightning occurs, the air around its path becomes extraordinarily hot in an extremely short time. That air expands violently. The resulting pressure disturbance travels outward as sound. That sound is thunder. Rain has its own physical story. Water vapor cools and condenses into tiny droplets or ice particles in clouds. Those particles grow. Eventually, some become heavy enough to fall as precipitation. No celestial hammer, no angry king of heaven, no storm god carrying lightning. And yet, knowing the mechanism doesn't make a giant thunderstorm feel small. So, what did ancient humans think rain and thunder were? There isn't one answer. For the earliest prehistoric humans, we simply don't know. Anyone claiming otherwise is telling you more than the evidence allows. But once written history begins, we find societies repeatedly transforming storms into stories. Adad and the bull, Indra and the thunderbolt, Zeus ruling the weather, Mesoamerican storm gods controlling life-giving and destructive water, Thor and the terrifying power of thunder. These weren't primitive attempts at a weather forecast. They were ways of putting overwhelming natural forces into a world humans could talk about, ritualize, and understand. Eventually, some ancient thinkers began looking for mechanisms instead of personalities. And thousands of years later, we can watch a storm on radar before it even reaches us. But the next time thunder suddenly shakes your room, notice your reaction before you remind yourself what caused it. For just a fraction of a second, the sky can still feel alive. If you could ask one person from 20,000 years ago what they believed was happening during a thunderstorm, what would you ask them?